What's up, fight fans? Welcome to Enter the Ring Live for Tuesday, June the 8th, 2021, with your hosts, Mighty Mike.
AJ Rage.
And Eric the Red.
It's been a while, guys. I know we've been out of commission for about a week, right? Week and a half?
Something like that.
Yeah. Due to my my absence.
No, that's fine. You took a little much needed little vacation, little getaway. Nothing wrong with that.
You look good, brother.
You know what, though? Boxing was, there was not a lot going on anyways.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you picked the perfect time to go disappear because there wasn't a whole lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, when you find yourself streaming, that Mayweather catastrophe or whatever the hell you want to call it, it's like this, you're pretty desperate for boxing of any kind. But there was a fight on that card that I think we need to discuss. Two fights actually, but I'll let you. How you doing, bro? How's everything going? Both of you guys.
Eric, you go ahead. Go ahead, Eric.
I'm doing good. Hey, got to show you something. I'll show you here. Hold on.
Oh, nice. I like
I'm gonna step away for 5 seconds, guys.
No problem, bro.
That is, we just picked that up today. It's for the Goonies inspired room that we're going to be doing near the end of the year, this coming year. So it's actual swords. It's the real deal, baby.
That's nice, bro. I like that, dude.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
It's pretty awesome. Dude.
So, hey, I know you were real busy over the weekend. I try to send you some video of Jarrett Hurd's bout against Arise. Couldn't find anything that was even worth even watching. I could discuss that. I'm pretty sure Mike watched it too. Another fight on that card from Showtime. The only two bouts that I really felt were relevant was the Jarrett Hurd versus Arias and then Badu Jack and his fight. And we'll discuss those.
You said that the Hurd fight was an upset, right?
Really? I mean, in a lot of people's eyes, a huge upset. I know that there was a lot of bad blood between Jarrett Hurd and Luis Arias. The thing about Arias is, here's a guy, he's a hard luck guy. He's a guy that came in, 19, he was 18-2 coming into the fight. He had lost a decision to Luke Kessler. He lost a unanimous decision to Daniel Jacobs back in 2017. So he's a guy that's, he got held to a tough draw against Gabriel Rosado. So he's a guy that just, has always been kind of like on the short end of the stick. Yeah. And I think he just got really pumped up for this fight. And it's not good news for Jarrett Hurd. At this point, Jarrett Hurd has to, I know that there was talk that Jarrett had just lost his father. And when you lose a family member, especially someone like a father, it is going to affect you mentally.
Yeah.
But the amount of punches that Jarrett Hurd took against a guy that I don't consider highly skilled is very concerning to me. And I'm starting to really question how much desire and dedication Jarrett Hurd has for professional boxing at this point.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's understandable. But yeah, you got to feel for anybody that loses a parent like that.
Sorry, guys.
Oh yeah, no problem, bro. So what I was telling Eric right now was talking about the Jarrett Hurd versus Luis Arias fight.
Yeah, Arias. Yeah.
And the thing is, I know that there was talk about. I was conveying to Eric that there was talk about Jarrett Hurd losing his father, and I know that's always going to sit heavy on anybody and stuff, but it was the manner in which Jarrett Hurd lost this fight, the amount of punches that he took from, like I told Eric just a little while ago, a fighter that I don't consider a really highly skilled fighter in Arias. How did you feel about it, Mike?
You know what? I only watched the replay of that because I didn't watch 1 minute of that event live. And the only replay I watched the highlights of the Chad Johnson fight because I was just intrigued to see how bad those guys were, and they were beyond bad. But yeah, I watched the highlights only of the Jarrett Hurd fight. I don't know what to say, man. I don't know. Where does he go from here? What he should have been able to dispose of that guy. Yeah, it seems like Jarrett Hurd's always been a bit of I don't want to call him a weight bully because that has a negative connotation, but he's always been the bigger guy. And that guy was not as tall as Hurd, but he was equally as, strong in the ring. And I think the fact that he was met with resistance and punch output. I don't know. I mean, Jarrett Hurd to me, and I like Jarrett Hurd a lot. I've always liked Jarrett Hurd ever since I first, a few years ago, I first saw him fight. What do you know? What's not to like about the guy? He's respectful. He doesn't get involved in all the nonsense. He trains hard. He was a world champion. He lost that, he lost a tough fight to lose his title. But I don't know, man. Where does he go from here? I don't know. He's going to have to think of something real quick, though. Maybe a jump up to 160 to where maybe he's not killing himself to drain himself all the way down to 154. I don't know how. I look at a guy like him at 154, and I look at a guy like Tim Tszyu, and I say to myself, how are these guys in the same weight category?
Yeah.
How is that even possible? He is a big man.
Like I said, I thought he looked a little drawn. Like I was telling Eric earlier, just before when you stepped away, when you take that amount of punches, the amount of punches that Jarrett Hurd was taking during the fight, and his reflexes just looked off, and he was such a huge favorite going in there. I know there was a lot of bad blood between him and Arias going into this fight, but it just kind of makes you question, how much more professional boxing does Jarrett Hurd really want to be involved in? Because you're right. Where does he go from here? Right now, he, like I said, he's bleeding in the water and the sharks are surrounding. There's been talk from the Charlo camp. There's been talk from a lot of other camps and stuff like this, as far as where Jarrett Hurd's how is he going to remain relevant at 154, especially losing this fight? And I'm not saying that Arias isn't a decent fighter. He's a guy that lost a close decision to Kessler a few years ago, lost a decision back in 2017 to Daniel Jacobs. But I thought he lost that fight against Gabe Rosado in 2018. That it was held to a draw. So what does that say about Jarrett Hurd?
Well, I tell you what, a few months back, we had that interview with John Molina when John Molina told us the fight that he ended up losing. What was the fight that he lost? The DeMarco fight.
DeMarco.
Where it was a situation where he knew he probably shouldn't have lost that fight, or something happened, and he said, "What did he do? He went right into Dan Goosen's office and said, 'Get me anybody. I don't care. I'll take the short money, short notice, whatever.'" And he did that, and he ended up winning the fight. Right? Was it Mickey Bay? Was it the Mickey Bay fight? Or
no. It was actually the
Lundy fight.
I think it was the Hank Lundy fight.
He got paid next to nothing for that fight, and that's what Jarrett Hurd's going to have to do now. He's going to have to understand, hey, you know what? Whoever they put in front of me, if they want to use me now as just the opponent, the name recognition to help build a guy, he just has to take full advantage of it, change up his tactics a little bit. I mean, he always trains hard. I mean, he has no problem going the full 12. That's never been an issue. He just has to change tactics, man. He doesn't fight like a tall, big guy. He doesn't. He fights in close.
No, but even in Jarrett Hurd's losses to even in his fight against like J. Rock Williams and stuff, and the other fights that he's had and stuff, you saw this level of superiority where you could see where Jarrett Hurd could control. He just looked like a shop-worn fighter from round one going into this fight. Even those exchanges that he had, he was just getting brutalized. I honestly thought at some point they were going to stop the fight.
Well, another thing too, I know that he was already talking about. I mean, his mind was on Charlo. He was saying all week up and leading up into the fight that, hey, you know what? Charlo has to fight me. I'm the only fight for him at 154. If he does, or basically saying the winner of him and Castano. But, you can't look that far ahead, man. Obviously, and people always say, man, don't overlook your opponent. And maybe he.
By the way, Mike, that fight that you were talking about with John Molina, it was actually that Andrei Klimov, the Russian guy that John had lost a 10-round decision to, and when he then
okay, yeah, and then he came back and said,
he got the fight with Mickey Bay, and he stopped Mickey Bay.
Yeah, Jarrett Hurd's gonna have to do that. I mean, I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him. I mean, maybe he goes up to 160. He can make some noise at 160.
Maybe, but I mean, you gotta. The way I look at it is, it's not so much the fact of, can Jarrett Hurd handle guys at 160? Yeah. But it's just his skill level right now. I mean, he's got to do something. His defense has never looked worse. I mean, he was just getting hit with everything from a guy who didn't have a lot of speed. Luckily, the guy wasn't a huge puncher. He was a good puncher, but he wasn't a huge puncher. So when Jarrett Hurd, if he ventures to 160 and he ends up getting there with guys like Jaime Munguia and some of these other big guys up there, he's going to be in trouble.
Even a Triple G, Demetrius Andre, those guys will hit him, and they're big guys.
Wow.
They're landing. These 154 pounders are landing on them. I mean, these middleweights are going to land on them too.
What do you think about that, Eric?
I just looked at some of the highlights of that as you guys were talking.
I mean, it was a good fight. I mean, it wasn't like it was an entertaining fight,
wasn't it? What I mean, I
What's
didn't
that?
get a chance to watch it or score it, but did you guys think it was a competitive fight or no?
Oh yeah, it was competitive.
but for the level of competition, he should have had his way with that guy. That guy had a loss to Keeler, I think. That guy. So the guy obviously rose to the occasion.
Yeah.
The guy rose to the occasion, and he felt disrespected by Jarrett Hurd. I know that. I know he felt that Hurd's looking past me. I'm going to shock everybody on Saturday or Sunday, whatever the fight took place.
And see, that's kind of my look at it. I don't care if you're an underdog or if you're not an underdog, or you don't, like you guys said, you don't take the person that's going to be across the ring from you for granted, no matter what.
Yep.
I mean, you train like if he's the biggest badass there ever was. And you fight him like that.
Yeah, you got to treat every fight like it's your last.
Exactly, because it could be.
Point.
It literally could be anybody that steps in that ring. Huge respect. First off, I mean, I know I go off every now and again on people like, I don't know, Billy Joe Saunders. Kidding. But big respect for anybody that's going to step inside that ring. But if you think you're so awesome and you don't have to like worry about this person because you're thinking about the guy after him.
Yeah. That's totally disrespect. Yeah. Well, like Mike was talking about earlier, Jarrett Hurd was already getting ready to cash that Charlo check. And, he didn't take care of what he had to take care of in front of him. And we've seen this already happen a couple times this year. Tony Harrison got gifted a decision that he probably didn't earn that kept him relevant at 154. That's a
against
yeah. So those are the kind of things that just can't happen when you got a 154-pound division that's starting to heat up. You got champions out there like Charlo and Castano, but then you got the guys who are knocking on the door, guys like Tim Zoo and other ones.
AJ, it's funny you say that. That's a match we could see down the line, right? We could see Tony Harrison versus Jarrett Hurd.
I think that would be a great matchup.
I mean, like you said, even though Tony Harrison, it was called a draw, that fight. I particularly don't feel he won the fight. I felt he lost that fight. I really do. And I think
he kind of had the effect like Jarrett Hurd. He just didn't look like he was up for the fight. With all the talk leading into the fight, you would think that he was really going to be set for this fight, and he just wasn't. Or maybe, Lewis was just a little better than Hurd thought he was, and it just kind of made Hurd change his game plan. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But his career's in trouble at this point.
Either way, you know what I mean, it's all fine and good to say, oh well, this guy's the big underdog or whatever. But everybody's got a puncher's chance. When you get in that ring, and you've got to just always be on your toes to watch out for that guy that's gonna all of a sudden a haymaker comes out of left field and you're stunned or something. I mean, so. I don't know where I was going to go with that.
Well, there was another, like I said, there was another good fight that was on that card. The only two fights I felt were relevant, and that was Badu Jack in his return bout. I know after numerous opponents fell through, he finally got an opponent.
Dervin
Colina, who came in, who took the fight and stuff. What was your impression of that fight?
Badu Jack's another guy that, what's not to love about the guy? He's been on the receiving end of some horrible decisions, some horrible luck with the gash. Remember the gash a couple of years ago? He's been a guy that's been on, like you said, that is just really, the judges have never favored him. But what did he do? Took it out of the hands of the judges. He knocked the guy down, 4 times, stopped him on body shots. Yeah. Badu Jack he's had some time to, he's had some inactivity, so maybe that was time for him to fully heal, to get refreshed, to get rejuvenated. I think he can make some huge noise. And you said you had mentioned, and I think he mentioned too, his camp said that they're considering the move up to cruiserweight.
Well, they're only considering that move right now because it's so hard for them to try to get somebody in the title position to actually want to face him. Because if you go back and you look at Badu Jack's resume, here's a guy that's done nothing but everything right. You go all the way back to the time when he lost his first bout, when he lost that first round devastating knockout to Derek Edwards back in 2014. But since then, he knocked out. He comes back and he beats guys like Anthony Jarrell, George Groves, Lucien Boutte. He won the fight against James DeGaulle. he won the fight against.
Oh yeah, he
Adonis
won that fight.
Stevenson.
Oh yeah, those were some of the bad decisions.
He had that catastrophe of a cut against Marcus Brown. I felt he won the fight against John Pascal. I don't know how they gave that fight to John Pascal. This is a guy who could be sitting almost undefeated, with the exception to the Marcus Brown fight. Could be sitting undefeated and stuff. So I mean, I know
there's all kinds of questions now about John Pascal when they fought last time. You know, due to his just recent, he tested what he had 4 banned substances in his pre-fight.
And it's not the first time for John Pascal. This is the second or third time. So he's going down that big baby Miller road.
We might have seen the last of him as well.
How do you think Badu Jack's power would be up at cruiserweight though?
I think respectable. I think because he's a big guy.
Yeah.
He's big.
He's sitting at like 58%, knockout right now. So I mean, yeah, that's feasible that he'd get up there and have some power too.
Well, I know when he fought that not an exhibition, but I know his last fight prior to this one. Remember, he fought at a cruiserweight because it was just I think it was a fight that was kind of thrown together late in the late stages, and he fought at I think 190 something pounds. So am I right?
That was against Cleverly.
Yeah, and he looked. I mean, he looked pretty devastating in that fight.
I think what really impresses me about Badu Jack is just the fact that he changed some things going inside here. He's a notorious slow starter. He came out really fast. He showed that he has a huge bag of tricks, but what really is mystifying to me is the fact that why I don't see him being discussed in possible matchups against guys like Arthur Beat, against Beterbiev or Bivol or any of these other top guys, Joe Smith. It seems like Badu Jack's name is always left out of that conversation. And I'll tell you right now, I think he's competitive against any one of them.
I'm going to tell you why it's left out. It's not because that he's not worthy. That it's because of the promotional companies. Badu Jack's on one side of the fence, and those other guys all fight on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
Two of those 3 that you mentioned fight for top rank, right? Beterbiev, his fights on top rank. So does Joe Smith. And then Bivol was fighting on top rank, HBO, then top rank. Now he's fighting on Matchroom. He's fighting like mid cards on Matchroom events, which doesn't make any sense to me. Here's a guy that was main event, but his performances as of late have not been stellar. So, I mean, he's still a world champion. That might
Bivol?
be something. Yeah, Bivol's still a world champion. He still holds one of the belts at 175.
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like I said, I mean, with Badu Jack, he's a guy who comes in at 6'1". He's bigger than all these other guys. To me, honestly, I know there's talk about how devastating, Arthur Beterbiev is, but I'm still going to go back to the fact that, he's a guy that comes in and he's tenacious, he wears you down, he's got a big punch, but he's slow as molasses and he doesn't have a whole lot of versatility to his game. I think a fight with a guy like Badu Jack, would be highly competitive, if not possibly dangerous for him at that point. For Bivol's on the small side. So, I think he's still a guy I think that needs to go down to 168, but that's just me.
No, you're right. I think of all those guys, I think if there was anybody to pull the upset and beat Beterbiev, it would be John Pascal. I don't see.
No, you mean
Badu Jack. Badu Jack can pull that upset. I don't think Joe Smith can. I don't think Dimitri Bivol can. I think it would be Badu Jack.
I think
in fact, I'd favor Badu Jack over both those guys, Joe Smith and Bivol, in a fight.
Absolutely. Because I mean, you look at that division.
In fact, I think he would win those fights easier than people think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at Badu Jack's age, at a guy that's 35, the clock's ticking, but he's had a resurgence. The thing is that he's never had that downside. He's never had a side where Marcus Brown was probably the worst he ever looked, and that a lot of that had to do with that gash. So the heart that Badu Jack possesses to just keep going forward with that fight. But the division itself is kind of thinning out a little bit and stuff, with the exception to, like I said, to the champions and guys like Zurdo Ramirez and Jesse Hart. You don't have a whole lot of guys left in that division.
Yeah. Well, Zurdo Ramirez, I'm not excited about him being in the division because the guy just flat out doesn't fight enough. I know he's with Golden Boy now, and they're talking about whether there's going to be a resurgence in his career, but Golden Boy is not exactly the platform. I mean, look what's happening to poor Jaime Munguia. Wow. I mean, fights.
Oh, yeah, the fight's off again.
Well, yeah, but now he's fighting Zarameta now, the guy that Triple G fought. So Zarameta, the other Polish fighter, stepping in. So thank God Jaime at least still gets to fight a week from Saturday. A week from Saturday. So the date, they held the date in El Paso, but, the guys that I train for one guy and then he pulls out. Then I train for the other guy. Then he pulls out. Then the fight's off. Then they move the fight and train for Sulecki again. Then he pulls out of the fight. He just doesn't want to fight Jaime Munguia. I mean,
to me, Sulecki needs to be reprimanded in some way for him to do what he's done to Munguia. But this is almost like, you look at this and it's almost like someone's back there pulling these strings, almost like they're trying to set up Munguia for failure. Because any other fighter would have said, you know what, F this, I'm not going to fight this date, whatever.
Who's the other fighter that we follow that's friend of ours that we say it seems like they're trying to set him up to fail? Another fighter. He just fought a few weeks ago.
Yep.
Right?
Chon Zepeda.
What's the common denominator? Both guys are promoted by Zanfer Promotions. And I'm not saying it's Zanfer pulling this trickery, but it's these other big promotions pulling this trickery on Zanfer.
Yep.
I really believe that's happening. I felt De La Hoya. I something in me tells me that there's some fuckery going on between those promotional companies, and they're not making it easier on those guys. They don't make it easy on the Zanfer promoted fighters. They don't.
They're afraid.
They treat them like almost like a second tier. And now, granted, I'm not going to say they're a second tier promotion. They're the biggest promotional outfit in Mexico and lots of parts of Latin America. But in America, Zanfer is considered maybe like a second tier. You know, you got Top Rank, you know, you got TGB, who's PBC, you got Matchroom, and then you got Zanfer and some smaller ones, you know.
Maybe maybe Zanfer needs to try and get more fights down in Mexico City or something.
Well, see, that's the thing though. There's fights there all the time. I mean, they put cards on in TJ, Mexicali all the time. It's just the money's not there. The money's not there.
Yeah.
No, the money's here.
When you're a guy like Jaime Munguia, a guy who's only 23 years old, undefeated, former champion at 154, already making waves at 160 and stuff. You don't want to see yourself get into this big legal battle where you got to pull out and you got to do this, like it's happened to so many fighters. Let's just be honest. At some point, Zanfer or whoever else is behind that promotion has to figure out what we're going to do, because all they're going to do is at some point, someone's going to steal Munguia from there. Going to say, hey, you got a diamond right here, man. Because let's be honest, Triple G's made it perfectly clear he wants no part of Munguia. Okay. Charlo's Charlo's not holding Munguia's name in any of his conversations.
Nope.
You don't hear anybody. It's just like what happens with Chon Zepeda. It's just like what happens with guys like Badu Jack. These guys get left out of conversations when they should be the focal point of a conversation when they make these matches.
Yeah. You know what, guys? I hate to say it, but those
we lost your video, Mike. We lost your video.
Oh, okay.
But you got to take your hats off to Munguia and take your hats off to Badu Jack and Chon Zepeda. Guys who could have easily said, you know what, I'll wait till next month and maybe we'll get the fight. They still stood there and took whatever opponent was thrown in front of them. Yep. Everybody, you got to give those guys credit. Those are guys who are coming to fight.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And eventually those are the guys that are going to be on everybody's,
they should already be on people's radar, but people always want to point out the downsides of these guys.
Okay, so let's take a look at hold on one second. Canelo Alvarez, when he first came out, he fought a little bit and nobody really said anything, but now he's like the talk of the town. So 5 years from now, or 4 years from now, 3 years from now, even that might be Munguia. You know what I mean? That might be because he's just going to keep doing what he's doing, how he's doing it, and he's going to make things happen.
Well, if Zanfer Promotion was smart, they would prime Munguia, get him those lucrative bouts that he needs right now, and hopefully set up that Cinco de Mayo weekend. Because if the money's right and the name's right, Canelo's not going to have a problem with it. He'll step in there and they'll make a Munguia Canelo fight. And believe me, man, we're talking Guadalajara versus Tijuana. You couldn't find a stadium big enough for that shit.
Yeah, that would be huge.
Huge, man.
That would be absolutely huge.
Yeah, that'll be But in going back to the Zanfer Promotions, when you guys were talking about Zanfer is going to lose these fighters, those contracts are written in blood, guys. And interpret that however you want to interpret it, but that's not happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Anyways,
so we were talking about Badu Jack, but he did. I thought Badu did a great job. He looked devastating.
Yeah, he did. He did. I mean, I'm happy to see him get the win. I'm happy to see him fight again. Because, like I said, he's a guy that look, I'm a lot more excited to see him fight than Jarrett Hurd. And he's got so much more wealth of experience and has had such a longer career than Jarrett Hurd. It's funny we'd be saying that, right? You would think we'd be saying that about Badu Jack,
new
but we're
guy,
saying
yeah.
that about the younger guy, the much younger fighter, and Jarrett
Yeah.
Hurd. So
Yeah. And
let's hope whatever's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead. You were saying?
No, so
No, I was gonna say let's hope whatever's going on in Jarrett Hurd's, whether it is a loss of his father or whatever. Let's just hope he can right the ship somewhere because I think he's good for boxing. I do.
Yeah.
He's good. Yeah. Yeah. When we were at the Molina, when we were at the hotel, I got to talk to Jarrett Hurd for a little while and stuff. He was over there and stuff. Great guy. You know what I'm saying? Really
Yeah.
good guy. And
Yeah.
big guy for 154. I'll tell you now, he's a big guy.
Oh yeah, he's big. He looks like a goddamn light heavyweight. I don't know
Yeah.
how he gets down to that 154.
Yeah. So we got some fights.
So-
I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead.
There wasn't a whole lot of else going on in actual real boxing this weekend. So
Daniel
what do you
Dubois.
guys? Yeah, Dubois. I mean, it was his comeback fight after that loss to Joe Joyce, a stoppage loss. Comes back and he knocks out. What's the name of the guy he knocked out? The guy's good for building a resume.
Dainu.
Yeah. So
Dainu.
Yeah, so Dubois looked pretty devastating. He kind of went back to looking devastating, but once again, yeah, Eddie Hearn or whoever is he with Eddie Hearn or is he with Queensberry? No, he's with Eddie Hearn, right?
I believe
Dubois.
So.
Yeah, so they're going to try to rebuild him. I mean, they have to. I mean, after that stoppage loss to Joe Joyce, what shocks me, and we talked about this, I think, AJ, why was Dubois fighting again and Joe Joyce is still not has a fight scheduled? Joe Joyce won that fight. What is going on with that guy's career, man? I mean, here's a guy, he's already in his mid-30s. What is Joe Joyce, 36 now? He's not young. He needs to get on the ball. This one fight every 18 months or whatever, COVID is no longer can be the excuse because they've been having fights in the UK. He's got to stay active, man.
No, you're absolutely right. Joe Joyce has to, especially at this juncture of his career, Joe Joyce to me kind of seems like he's following a career, and I hope he doesn't follow the same exact career path. But as far as timing, as another fighter who was making a little bit of noise for a while when he got his title shots, and that was Dominic Breazeale.
Yeah,
Dominic Breazeale went inside there, and he'd win a good fight, and then he would kind of disappear for a while. Then you would see him back, and next he was thrusted into these championship bouts against guys like
Wilder and Joshua.
It just wasn't ready for it and stuff. Joe Joyce has to get more frequent as far as with this fight, especially at his age that he's at right now. It's going to take a little bit more time for his body to be able to sustain that punishment, being the fact that he's aging more and more. He's got skill. I'm not saying he's going to beat guys like Wilder or Tyson Fury. You never know, though. I mean, nobody thought he was going to beat
Dubois.
And look what he did to Dubois against a guy who was a monstrous puncher and a very avoided fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you guys make of? Okay, so this all transpired in the last couple of weeks, while we were kind of taking a little brief hiatus. But the entire Tyson Fury Anthony Joshua fight fell apart. Now we have a confirmation of July the 24th. The trilogy will happen. Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder will fight for the third time in Las Vegas. I just read today that the commission in Nevada has approved T-Mobile Arena as the site. So it looks like we're going to get that fight, guys. July. I had originally heard they were going to try to do it at the Oakland Stadium, Allegiant Stadium, not Oakland, where the
Beautiful
Raiders play.
stadium, by the way. I was just there, dude. Oh my God, dude. What a beautiful stadium. Dude.
But I think reality kind of caught up to them. They go, well, wait a minute. If we granted, these guys are good fighters and they're two of the three best heavyweights in the division, but they can't fill out that stadium. T-Mobile is more realistic, and we'll see if they can sell that out. I mean, there's 20,000+ seats at T-Mobile Arena. There's 17, 18 at MGM Grand.
And it's Vegas, so it's gonna bring that. I want to get you guys' take. We'll start with you, Eric, and then we'll go to you, Mike, and then we'll come over to me. But what do you think about the trilogy fight between Wilder and Fury?
Okay, so I'll tell you who I want to win, and then I'll tell you who I think will probably edge it out. I do not want Fury winning.
Really?
I really don't. Gypsy King, blah blah blah. He's just a loud mouth. I don't like his whole persona.
He's got kind of obnoxious lately. Yeah,
he has. I mean, completely obnoxious as far as just a layman boxing fan watching. He's just a jerk. You know what I mean? I hope Anthony Joshua gets in there.
No, you mean Deontay Wilder?
I'm sorry, Deontay Wilder. I hope Wilder gets in there and actually did his homework and does a great job. That's who I want to win. Who I think will probably win is probably going to be Fury.
Yeah.
But
How do you think he wins? Decision? Think another stoppage?
late stoppage or decision?
Late stoppage or decision? I can see that.
Late stoppage or decision.
How about you, Mike?
I'll tell you what. About 2 weeks ago, week and a half, 2 weeks ago, when the fight was signed, or when they, when it was semi-official, and when Deontay Wilder was staying relatively quiet, and you just saw the footage of him training and just working, I liked that mindset. I said, this Deontay Wilder can go out there and shock the world, so to speak, because the Vegas and most of the betting public is going to think that Fury's going to win this fight in the same manner in which he won the second fight. But I thought to myself, well, Wilder's obviously taking this serious because he's staying away from the limelight. He's not getting in front of the cameras, giving interviews. Yep. Lo and behold, what does he start doing this last week? He starts talking again, talking this, talking that. Still talking about the gloves, still talking about the tamper. I mean, it's like right away, Deontay, your mind should not even be focusing on that anymore. You should be looking forward, straight ahead. Don't look to the side, left, right, behind you. Look straight ahead. Train, focus, because he still has that puncher's chance. But when I hear these interviews, when I hear what he's saying, all this stuff that he's still talking about the last fight, it shows me that he's not focused on the fight in front of him. It shows me that he's still stuck in his crawl. What happened in the last fight? And I think he just has such an ego that he can't just accept it. Deontay, you lost the fight.
Do you think that he could be trying to play games with that though? Trying to
no, I don't think he's smart. I don't think he's wise enough to play head games.
Okay.
He doesn't know how to play. Tyson Fury is the one that's going to play the mind games. If they sat down and played a game of chess right now, Tyson Fury would probably beat him in 6 moves. I mean, Tyson Fury is more intelligent than Deontay Wilder. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But Deontay Wilder should just focus on making this a competitive fight. And if the big punch lands, the big punch lands. But if he goes in there and fights in the same manner, not moving, not using his jab, just looking for one punch at a time, I see another Fury. I see Fury winning this fight again.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell you, my take is, and I'm going to, like I said, our hashtag today was, it's going to get real today. And I'm going to be honest with you. To people out there, go get a copy of their fight on February 22nd, 2020. Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 2. Okay? Watch that. Don't even waste your money on this pay-per-view because nothing's going to change. Deontay Wilder's not ready for this moment because Deontay Wilder still hasn't repaired whatever needed to be repaired leading up to this fight. He's not doing the work in the gym. He's going to try to bring that same product and he's going to try to hope, dream, and swear on that right hand. And if it doesn't come, it's the same result. Tyson Fury can say whatever he wants. He can talk. That's Tyson Fury. He loves to sing his country songs. That's him. He's bigger than life. But at the end of the day, Tyson Fury takes the sport very seriously. And if Tyson Fury would have took that loss, even with the ego that he has, he wouldn't have been focusing on that loss. He would have been focused on what it's going to take in order to get past that loss and get back what he's lost. Deontay Wilder hasn't realized that yet. Unfortunately, after this loss, Deontay Wilder goes from being a top-class, dangerous heavyweight to just another guy in the middle of the mix, and then he'll probably get gobbled up by somebody on the way coming up. Yeah. I honestly think Deontay's seen his better days as far as a professional fighter because Deontay can't get over being Deontay. At some point. Yeah,
exactly. Like I said, that ego is just, he cannot get around it.
You got to humble yourself. You got to lick your wounds and say, you know what? Tomorrow's going to be a better day. Well, Deontay's still looking at yesterday and not the next day. So,
the fact that he's working now with Malik Scott, a guy that he fought several years back, that the rumor is that Malik Scott took a dive, a solid punch never landed. He goes down, didn't get up, gets counted out. This is not a guy, and I'm not discrediting Malik Scott as a fighter. I mean, he was a fighter, like you said, Eric, at the beginning of the show today. I mean, you respected these guys getting in the ring, they fight. But Malik Scott is not an elite trainer. No. To me, Malik Scott's a guy that Deontay got a hold of him and said, hey, look, man, we worked, whatever. I want you to work with me, whatever. Maybe they got along well. I want you to work with me. But is he really doing anything? Does he have a proven track record? to actually help develop a fighter and correct the
No.
mistakes? So, no. And he's probably paying him just a flat fee. He's probably not giving him the standard 10%. Matter of fact, I probably put my house note up on that he is not going to give 10%. He's probably just going to go, hey, I'm going to give you a flat fee of this or whatever it is. It's going to be a lot more than Malik Scott ever made as a fighter. I can tell you that. But it won't be what he's deserving.
Yeah. I tell you what I think the big issue is right here. I look at Malik Scott, and it's no different than when Vladimir Klitschko took Jonathan Banks, who was one of his former victims, as his trainer. Jonathan Banks did nothing for Vladimir Klitschko,
just like he's doing nothing for Triple G.
Yeah, and the thing is that Malik Scott's just a yes man, and unfortunately, we've talked about that with fighters that bring in people that just agree. Deontay Wilder's so hard headed; he doesn't want to get in there with an experienced trainer that's going to bust his balls and tell me, man, we got to get to work on this. No, he wants to go in there and live in this dream, in this fantasy land that he's created in his mind, and Malik Scott goes with that, and he's going to feed him that fuel that he needs to go in there and leave. But unfortunately, he's leading him down a path of disaster, because I'm going to be honest with you, this next loss is going to be more than just devastating for Deontay Wilder. I see this being career ending. If his ego couldn't get over this first loss, if this next loss is even worse, it's the end of Deontay Wilder. I guarantee you.
Yeah, you might be right, man. You might be right. This might be the nail in the coffin right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't done nothing. He knows the things he needs to work on. You know what I'm saying? He needs to become a more complete fighter. He needs to be able to move side to side a little bit better. He needs to put some weight on to be able to handle some of these guys that are coming in at 250 plus. And he hasn't done any of that.
Yeah, I saw some recent footage of him, and he's hitting the pads one at a time, left, right. Give me a one.
Yeah.
Give me a two.
Not
Give me
gonna
a
work, man.
It's not going to work, man. You need to really get in there and start learning how to, and I know it's late in his career for him to start to be retrained, but you got to try. You got to try to mix up your assault and your arsenal. And it looks like to me he's just going to be, wide stance, flicking out that jab, throwing a big right hand, trying to land it, because he hasn't worked on a left hook at all. He doesn't throw an uppercut. He doesn't throw anything but a pawing jab. Sometimes he throws a good jab. There were times in his previous fights where he was using a nice jab against Bermain Stavern, against Luis Ortiz. He set up that right hand with a nice jab.
He's regressed since the Luis Ortiz fight. He's not even as good of a fighter as he was even though he was losing that fight. He was able to dig down deep and start doing some things when he caught Ortiz with the uppercut and some other things that he couldn't do against Tyson Fury. Like, to me, a guy like Tyson Fury, who's not as dangerous as a fighter, is King Kong Ortiz. If you're going to walk in a hellfire with King Kong Ortiz, why did you have a problem doing it with Tyson Fury? It didn't make any sense to me and stuff. He just he became one-sided. He was just right-hand happy, got shell-shocked, and was done, and was looking for a way. He can see whatever he wants to get blame Mark Breland, but Deontay Wilder, after that second knockdown, was looking for a way out of the fight. He was done. Yeah.
Yep. So what do you guys think about this weekend's action coming up? I know we got Shakur Stevens is fighting this weekend. Am I right?
Yeah.
There's a big weekend on the 19th, but we'll save that obviously till the weekend show. But so we have Shakur Stevens is fighting a guy, and I can't say the guy's name, and I don't think it's going to matter because I don't even know who the guy is.
Nakatelia.
Or whatever. Here's another one. Here's another guy. Here's another guy like a Teofimo Lopez. These guys talk. Devin Haney, Teofimo, all these guys talk about they want the best. We're the best. We're the new crop of fighter, and they don't take on the best. I've never even heard of this guy before. I've never seen this guy fight. I don't even know who this guy is. I don't know who this guy.
Jeremiah Nakatila.
They call him low key. I've seen him fight a couple times. He's slower than molasses. He's got no real punch, even though he's got 17 knockouts and stuff. Very mediocre. He's going to sit at the end of Shakur Stevens. It's going to be pop shot night for Shakur Stevens and just another highlight reel is all it is. You're absolutely right, bro. Shakur Stevens is another one who does a lot of talking on social media, but doesn't seem willing enough to step up against some of these other guys, even though he's getting his name called out in conversations with some of these other top fighters and stuff. He doesn't seem interested in any of that. He's going to take the easy road. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
this is just another showcase fight, and I see that Top Rank and ESPN are they're trying in vain. They're doing little vignettes and little stuff about Shakur Stevenson. It's not going to work. He's got no appeal. They're saying it's because he was actually about all the young American fighters right now, he was the most successful as the Olympian, but they didn't build him based off of that. When Oscar De La Hoya came out in 92, they built him based on the Olympics. In 84, when all those guys won the Olympic gold medals, Breland, Meldrick Taylor, Whitaker, all those guys, they built those guys. That was their platform to build off of. These are all our Olympic champions, gold medal winners. They didn't do that with Shakur Stevenson. They really didn't do it. And he's much like Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney. They don't have the appeal that they think they do. They just don't. And I'll give you proof. Okay. I don't know how many people tuned into the fight, Devin Haney versus Linares, that happened a week ago, right? Not that many people tuned in. Matchroom DAZN doesn't release their viewership numbers. They keep those very tight-lipped. So you don't know if it was on an ESPN or a Showtime or whatever, you would know what the ratings. I would gather to say the ratings were poor, very poor. Teofimo Lopez is another one. Case in point, his original fight date was June the 5th in Miami. What did they do? They bounced that fight 2 weeks later because Floyd Mayweather decided to fight a YouTube dork. What does that tell you? That people would rather go waste $50 to see Floyd fight a YouTube guy with no boxing experience than the so-called The Takeover. Yeah. I mean, these guys are living in a fantasy world, man. They're living in a fantasy world. Well, you know who's going to be The Takeover? Guys like Oscar Valdez. Guys that are fighting the best guys out there. And they're putting asses in the seats, and people are tuning in to watch those guys fight. Those are the ones.
Well, here's the thing: Shakur Stevenson could run his mouth all he wants on Twitter, and call people out. But there's always one name that he refuses to really mention in there. And I'm not even going to say guys like Burchell or Jamal Herring and stuff like that. I'm talking about Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez sits on top. He's a super champion in that division and stuff, and he's waiting for him. But is Shakur Stevenson even interested in about like this? Oscar Valdez has been very, very, very adamant. He wants anybody. Jojo Diaz, Jamal Herring, a rematch against Burchell, Shakur Stevens. He doesn't care. Chris Colbert, who's another one. Shakur Stevens had an opportunity, and they gave him a great contract to fight against a price to fight against Chris Colbert. He had no interest.
Yeah. No, he wanted no.
Wants to take the easy road in these guys against a 31-year-old guy who's
it's gonna come back and bite him in the it's gonna bite him.
I think it is gonna come back and bite him. I'm sorry, let me interject here for a second. I'm watching Nakatila right now. And
he's gone awful. He's gone awful.
Huh?
He's gone.
He's awful. Okay, but you know what? He's been wanting this fight for 3 years, is what I just read. Okay. Yeah. So and then it was
but has he done anything to really
I don't know. I am always for the underdog 9 times out of 10 anyway. So I'm hoping that Nakatila actually gets in there and makes this a good fight.
No, it's easy pickings for Shakur Stevens because Nakatila had his opportunities against guys like Tevin Farmer, Foster and other ones, and he turned those fights down. So you're talking about a guy who's just sitting in that little realm waiting to get one of these top guys, but he doesn't want to earn it getting up there and stuff.
Well, you never know. Everybody's got a puncher's chance. So, I'm going to be the devil's advocate on this one, and I'm going to go for the
I think it's an easy night for Shakur Stevens. I think Shakur Stevenson embarrasses the guy.
Yeah, I think so as well. But at the end of the day, it's the only person that's going to prove anything is to himself. He's going to give himself another false sense of pride and saying, look what I did. I'm the best. I'm this, I'm that. I won all these guys. I'm so tired of fighters saying that. I won all these guys. You didn't hear that 10, 20 years ago. Guys didn't say I won all those guys. I won all those guys. The only one, the guy in the last 10 years that has said I want these guys and actually goes out and gets them. Well, no. In the last 10 years was someone, believe it or not, like Triple G. Triple G wanted Canelo. He wanted that fight. He was following him around, and he eventually got the fight. He got it twice. But a lot of these other fighters talk about they want the fight, but they don't really want the fight. Teofimo doesn't want the big guys. I mean, he's fighting Kambosos, who's training his ass off, and he looks very confident, but he just doesn't have the ability. He doesn't have the punch, although Teofimo is chinny. But I don't think Kambosos has the punch. Teofimo, Shakur, Devin Haney, these guys just, man, if this is the new crop that's going to carry boxing into the 20,
but it's not. I think it's going to get it's eventually going to get weeded out. You're always going to get this. Let's go back 2 years when the Charlos first came on, when they really started making some waves. It was just talk. But as soon as these guys got in there with some decent fighters, you know what I'm saying? All of a sudden that all changed. You saw that they weren't these super fighters that everybody thought that they were, because it was just this invention that was created. Same thing's going to happen to Shakur Stevens. Let's be honest. Terrence Crawford can't even get held in a conversation right now. He's going to find some other. I don't even know who he's going to fight next. He's lost any of the fan base that he's had. He's got no
fan base.
He's got no fan base. Yeah.
He's got no fan. And you know what? And with each day that goes by, Bob Arum is leaking more and more and more. He's basically putting it out there now. He's basically saying that venues and networks and sites do not want to pay the upfront money for a Terrence Crawford fight because he doesn't bring anything. Now, if you want to go fight in Omaha where the admission's, $5 and a can of pork and beans, yeah, you can fill that arena. But nobody wants to fight.
And Manny doesn't talk shit. Manny Pacquiao said Terrence Crawford never really had any interest in the fight. When they sat down, there was no interest. It was just to get his name put inside there. When it came down to Errol Spence, it was let's make it happen. And it was done.
So now what Terrence Crawford will do, and he's already doing it, he'll just say, well, you know, these guys, they don't want to fight me because I'm the best.
Shit.
Like, well, maybe they don't want to fight you, and you get 70% of the purse or even 50% of the purse when you're not. He's not the draw. He's never proven anything. He's proven things in the ring. He's a good fighter, but he's won titles. He's unified. Although I believe. Hold on. Although I believe it's the weakest 140-pound division at the time he did it. Could he do it in this 140-pound division now? I don't think so. 3-4 years ago when he did it in 140 pounds, who did he really beat? Who did he beat?
Nobody.
He beat the best guy he beat probably was Postal, Victor Postal. He beat what's his name?
He beat Amir Khan. He beat a cripple, Jose Benavidez. So if Benavidez wasn't coming off of that injury, he probably would have beat him. He beat
Jeff Horn.
You know, and Dongo, who had no skill whatsoever. Felix Diaz, who was undersized. John Molino, who was sick going into the fight. You know, we know that for a fact. Victor Postol, who really has no skill. Hank Lundy, after he already lost 5 fucking fights. Let's be honest, guys. He's never fought anybody when they
anywhere near their prime. He never has.
I would love to see a winner take all. If he's so confident, and I know, but if
never
he's
happened,
so
bro. We gotta talk.
You know what? Let's do it that way.
And you know, when you talk about Terrence Crawford, you talk about and I know the debate is there between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. Some people think Crawford's better. Some people say Spence. I look at it, AJ, going based on what you just said. You talked about he's never fought anybody, meaning Terrence Crawford, who's really at their prime, right? Yeah. Okay, case in point. Errol Spence fought a prime Mikey Garcia. Now, granted, Mikey Garcia had no business fighting on 147, and Errol won every second of all 12 rounds and embarrassed him. Gave Mikey the beating that he'll never take a beating like that again. Terrence Crawford fought an undersized Gamboa, gets rocked, gets hurt, you know, equally undersized, actually smaller than Mikey Garcia. I think if you try to match up Yuriokis Gamboa right now against Mikey Garcia, I think the heavy money would go on Mikey. I think Mikey would end up probably stopping Gamboa late. It might be competitive for the first 6-8 rounds, but then Mikey would just wear him down. So when you think about it, when you compare it, you go, okay, with who have these guys fought in their primes? The 2 best guys that they fought. And that's probably the best guy that Terrence Crawford has on his resume, who was 2 divisions, started out 2 divisions smaller, was fighting at 135, came up to 140, had no business fighting at 140, and still gave him a very competitive fight.
Well, Terrence Crawford's trying to live off the thing. Well, look what I did to Cal Brook. You did it to a damaged Cal Brook that even I got tricked to thinking that Cal still had something left in the tank, and he didn't. Okay, but to compare Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence's ring resumes, it's like you know, bananas and pineapples. It doesn't make any sense because you know Errol Spence has got guys like you know 2-time champion Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, you know Mikey Garcia. I mean, Lamont Peterson. I mean, these are guys that Terrence Crawford's never even looked at. You know, he'd rather fight guys like Kavalukas, and he's already shown a vulnerability. He's chinny too. He gets knocked down by the meat machine. That day's coming. He's going to get in there with a guy. Possibly it's a guy, you know, like
that's going to know how to finish.
Well, like it could be a one of the boogeymans of the division. It could be a Chon Cepeda, or it could be what's his name, Regis Prograis. Those could be the guys, but you see, Terrence is never going to look that way. He's at this point in his career, he's trying to cash out, but he was never serious about taking on Manny Pacquiao because of one reason. He saw what Manny did to Keith Thurman.
You know what I would do if I was Josh Taylor? I would tell Terrence Crawford, yeah, I'll fight you. Come back down to 140 because you got nothing going on at 147. Yeah. You can make 140 still. He's not a physically big guy. What is he, 5'8"? He's not a big guy. Come back down to 140 and watch what happens to him. I think Josh Taylor beats him, and I think he beats him handily. I really do. I really do.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Regis Prograis knocks him out. If they he's another guy that doesn't get an opportunity. Give Regis Prograis his opportunity. There's a lot of good guys at that division in that division right now. That's why Terrence Crawford left that division, because that division was heating up. He went into a division that he knew was a traffic jam. The welterweight division was already a traffic jam with Errol Spence, possibly his questionable career, with him having that bad car accident and stuff. And then he thought, well, I'm going to feast on guys like Mikey Garcia. But guess what? It didn't work out that way. Guys like Mikey Garcia and some of these other guys and Cal Brook got knocked out of the way and got dropped down a bunch of pegs. So now Terrence has got to come up through guys like Keith Thurman, Sean Porter. He won't even take on Sean Porter.
No.
I mean,
he won't even take on Sean Porter.
Yeah,
he won't even take on Sean Porter. They're offering Sean Porter, $1 million for that fight? Give me a break. Sean Porter makes 3, 4, 5 times that to go fight here at Carson. You know what I mean? Against a Ugas,
Terrence Crawford's an experienced boxer who's been in boxing for a long time. He knows how these backroom negotiations work. He knows that if anybody was to bring him at this level in his career, $1 million offer, don't even waste my time. I'm going to close the door in your face. For him to bring that to Sean Porter is saying to Sean Porter, I don't want to fight you.
Yeah, that's an insult. Sean Porter is more than deserving. Whatever money Sean Porter makes in his career, he deserves every penny and more. Exactly. Love or hate him, the way he fights, he's kind of rough and tumble. He doesn't have he's not the prettiest guy to watch, but Sean Porter is another guy like Danny Garcia, like Errol Spence, that will fight any and everybody and has proven it. Win, lose, or draw. I mean, he's proven it.
No, absolutely. Now, moving on from the next one, there's another good fight on the 12th too. We got the sniper Pedraza back going up against undefeated Julian Rodriguez. This is an interesting bout.
Yeah, Pedraza, here's a guy that I mean, this is a guy that has stayed very, very active. I would venture to say he's one of the, and he even had a fight canceled, if you remember right. Somebody tested positive for COVID, that Pierre guy. So he's a guy that's fought multiple times during COVID and all throughout the pandemic, and he obviously wants to get his name back in there. He wants to. I was very impressed with his win over Molina. I got to be honest with you. I thought he was biting off too much. I knew Molina was a bigger guy, and I that fight impressed me and shocked me at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, especially coming off that loss to Chon Zepeda, where he was thoroughly dominated in that fight. Chon Zepeda looked amazing in that fight and thoroughly dominated Pedraza. Probably the most dominant loss that I've seen Pedraza suffer next to Tank,
Next to Tank.
But like I said, I mean, Pedraza's victory over Molina and even, Les Pierre before that and stuff. This is a guy who's just kept himself relevant. He's fought the best of the best. He's been in there with guys like Lomachenko and other ones like this. Then you got the young gun. You got Julian Rodriguez, who's coming into the fight, 21-0. There's a lot of talk, a lot of hype about him based off of his. I wasn't too impressed with this, even though he won that fight quick against Jose Lopez. He's shown this vulnerability to get hit. And against a guy like Pedraza, the reason why they call him a sniper, he's very accurate in his punching. So Julian's going to really have to figure out, how to kind of like tighten up that defense, because it can end up being easy pickings for Pedraza. I just think based on sheer experience alone, because Julian's never been in. This is a huge step up for him in class.
Yeah, this is the measuring stick right here for Julian. So we'll see what he could do. If he goes out there and looks devastating or dominates Pedraza, then, you got another guy in that division that, one thing I don't want to see happen in the division. I know there's already been talk. I've been hearing people rumblings about Ramirez would like a shot. Who did they say? Ramirez would like a shot at Teofimo if Teofimo comes up to 135. You know what I mean? The only fight to me that makes any sense for Ramirez is he needs to give Chon that rematch, let Chon avenge that loss, and then that winner fight Taylor, because I don't think they're going to give Chon a shot at Taylor right away. They just won't, especially based off that last performance. And although Chon won comfortably, it just wasn't an exciting fight. So I think Taylor at this point, I think he would be slightly favored in that fight. I think Chon has all the ability and the power to win that fight, but I think Chon maybe needs one more fight to maybe get himself back on the right track.
Yeah, his head back in the game.
Yeah, and I think Taylor's going to look elsewhere. Taylor's not going to look for a fight that tough for his first defense. And I don't think he's going to vacate the belts and move up just yet. I think he's going to go. You know what? He makes weight very comfortable. If you remember, all week during the weigh-in, he's drinking water. So he.
Well, he's got a mandatory coming up against Regis Prograis. Supposedly that's on the table right now. So whether or not he's going to accept it or not, he's going to have to vacate one of those titles.
That'd be another great fight. That'd be a great rematch fight.
That would be a good fight.
That was a very good fight.
I'm going to lean towards Regis on this one only because, like I said, if I go back, I always go back to when they first met and who's progressed the most. Don't get me wrong. I think what Josh Taylor has done is amazing in only 18 fights. But Regis Prograis is a whole nother ballgame. Regis Prograis, you look at what he did in the Josh Taylor fight. I'm going to say it again. It wasn't what Josh Taylor did. It's what Regis Prograis didn't do. And he barely lost that fight. So if Regis Prograis goes in there 100% Regis Prograis, it's going to be a dangerous night for Josh Taylor.
Yeah, because the other fight was razor thin. It was a split decision, right? Victory for Josh Taylor. It was a razor thin fight.
Could have went either way.
I think Josh pulled it off. I think maybe 7 rounds to 5, but they were very close.
Yeah.
Is there any talk? Is there any talk about Josh Taylor trying to unify all the belts because he's only missing the WBO?
No,
He's got them all.
The
Josh
WBO?
Taylor he's got all 4 of them.
Got all 4 now.
He's got all 4.
I'm looking right here. It says Jose Ramirez has the WBO.
No, that's old. He took his WBO belt. Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah. Josh Taylor is in my opinion, he's the only true undisputed world champion in boxing right now.
Yeah, he earned it the hard way. Other than Vasily Lomachenko, who almost had it, you know what I'm saying? Teofimo Lopez wasn't earned that way. You know,
no.
The guy already had multiple belts. Josh Taylor went out there, beat the champion to get to where he had to be.
Yeah, he beat 3 champions.
Real quick, can we talk about the 160 pound, where Munguia is literally number 1?
He's been number 1. He's been number 1 for a year.
But he's the only.
You mean he's number 1 in the WBO? He's not number 1. He's not the number 1 rated middleweight. He's number 1 in the WBO because when you vacate a belt in the lower division, they automatically place you the number 1.
WBC, WBO. He's number 1.
Pretty much almost number 1 across the board. With all of them.
Almost
right
across the board.
He's a mandatory for Charlo. He's a mandatory for Triple G. He's a mandatory for a lot of people. They're just not getting fight.
They need to give him a fight.
Well, yeah, he's got his fight next Saturday. He needs to look good in this fight. He needs to look good, look devastating, and I think he will. I think he beats Zarameta easier than Triple G did, and then he's just going to continue to make a statement. It's like Tim Tszyu made the statement, I beat Jeff Horn and easier than Crawford, and I beat Hogan easier than Charlo. Eventually, people are going to start noticing that, and they're going to go, well, if these other guys are so great, this guy's doing the same thing that they did, but easier. Yeah, he's legitimate. He's legitimate. I know Jaime takes a lot of. He just doesn't have the right promotional outfit behind him. I'm just not gonna lie. That's what it comes down to. If he was fighting under the PBC banner or even Top Rank, I think he'd be doing better. He's associated with Golden Boy, who's floundering at this point. I mean, when was the last time they signed somebody good? Zurdo Ramirez signing him is not good. Zurdo Ramirez is a guy. I
thought Zurdo Ramirez retired 5 years ago. I hadn't heard that guy in so long. But moving forward a little bit to next week, I know we're not going to get on those bouts right now because the 19th is a huge day for boxing. I'm telling you right now, man, there's a lot of big fights. Obviously, you got Teofimo Lopez against George Kambosos. You got the monster, the return of the monster, Inoue, and his fight against Dustin Marinas.
He's fighting a tough guy. He's a tough guy.
Very tough. You got Jamal Charlo taking on, even though it was a victim of Jaime Munguia, but I'm going to tell you right now, Montiel's a live dog. He's
against Charlo.
Against Charlo, yeah. So I mean, you got a lot of good fights. You got Francisco Vargas going up against, Isaac Gonzalez. There's another classic right there.
Yeah, we're gonna have to definitely break all those fights down in the next show because that'll take us a long time to talk about.
And then it's gonna move right to the very next week, in which we got the great Vasily Lomachenko coming back in a very dangerous fight
against Nakatani. Yeah,
and on that same week we got Erickson Lubin going up against Jerson Rosario. I mean, boxing just gonna continue to heat up.
Yeah, and I tell you got to give all credit to Vasily Lomachenko for taking this big of a challenge against a big guy, another big guy, physically a big lightweight. And I really fully believe we're going to see a completely different Lomachenko. I think Lomachenko is going to go at him from the first round on, and I think his goal is to go out there and stop Nakatani fast. He's going to force Teofimo to either vacate those belts or give him the rematch. That's what I think his motivation is, and I think that's why they chose Nakatani, because Nakatani and Teofimo had a tough fight. It was a tough fight. It was a close fight.
There was a lot of people that felt that Nakatani almost edged that fight. I mean, I had a razor thin going into the last.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Nakatani, like I said, I mean, based off of his victory, most recent victory against Felix Verdejo, I mean, here's a guy that gets knocked down twice. He showed the resilience, and I think that's the big thing, is that he got back up, something that Teofimo wasn't able to do. So if Lomachenko is able to go in there and hurt Nakatani the way Felix Verdejo did, but keep him on the ground, it's just one notch up. And how can you deny Lomachenko the opportunity at that point? But on the other hand, if Lomachenko doesn't go in there and look stellar, and for some reason he falls back into that old script that he was doing, being a little bit more cautious, He cannot do that against a fighter like Nakatani.
I don't think he's going to.
You know?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to. And I think the key is the body. Nakatani's long
absolutely.
and lanky. He's go to the body. He stopped the guy. He stopped Linares with a body shot. He's hurt Luke Campbell and dropped Luke Campbell with the body. I mean, Lomachenko is a master body puncher. He goes to Nakatani's body. He could stop him to the body. So we'll see.
And I think Nakatani's a lot stronger puncher too, because against Felix Verdejo, he wasn't weight trained like he was against Teofimo Lopez in that fight. He wasn't as weight trained. Remember how we discussed it before, you know, how they were literally holding up Nakatani, you know, prior to the fight. So that's going to be the same situation with Lomachenko. You know, Nakatani's, you know, more suited for the weight right now and stuff like this. So he's going to be stronger. He's going to be hitting a lot harder and stuff. So,
and he's coming in the fight with some confidence. I mean, some confidence.
He knows a victory over Lomachenko is going to give him that rematch against Teofimo Lopez. And I guarantee you, Teofimo Lopez is rooting for Nakatani. He doesn't want to see Lomachenko again.
He doesn't want to see either of them. He wants to, he's like we said this a few weeks ago, he's going to take those belts hostage. Proofs in the pudding. He's fighting Kambosos. No disrespect to Kambosos. I've grown fond of him because I like his persona. I like the Aussie, the Greek Aussie, and he seems like he's the kind of guy I'd like to hang out with and have a beer with. I just don't think he's very skilled, and I don't think he's very physically strong. He doesn't really have that one punch power. You know, he has marginal power, nothing great, but you know. No, another fight that I will not watch that fight. Because I refuse to support that Triller platform, but I'll definitely watch the replay.
So I know we're almost done here today, and I don't want to talk about the whole thing about that joke of a thing, but I will say one thing about Floyd Mayweather, if you guys don't mind, is the fact that I honestly feel at this point, watching Floyd lumber through these rounds with this guy who had no clue what he was doing in there and stuff. He looked like a guy just trying to get into a street fight. Floyd's skills have diminished so badly. His speed's not there, his accuracy. When you get a guy who has no boxing skill and he's able to elude your punches with a little bit of what looks experience, but it's not, it's just instinct, it's time to call it a day. And at this point, Floyd is just a shell of what he used to be. I don't want to hear any more discussions about Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, anybody, because against any competitive fighter, and I'm going to say a mid-level guy, I'm not even talking a top-tier guy, it's not going to end well for Floyd at this point. But the bad thing is that one of these guys, these knuckleheads that get in there, are going to end up getting killed when they get in there with a guy who's actually a killer, not like Floyd, who always wants to make it a snooze fest and stuff. Maybe one day they get a guy like Canelo to go in there and say, you know what, I'll take your $30 million, $40 million, and I'll go in there and I'm going to kill this kid in the ring. And that's exactly what will happen. And if is that what it's going to take? Is it going to take the death and the scare to go through that social media thing to show these people this isn't a fucking game?
No.
You know, you guys are out here calling each other out, talking shit. This isn't a game, man.
And that's what Ricky Hatton, I read some comments that he said, and he's just completely disgusted. And here's a guy that's got a lot of respect for Floyd Mayweather and has remained friends with him over the years, but he just lost all respect for the entire fiasco that it turned out to be. You know, I mean, I swear I wouldn't say anything about this, but the only thing I will allude to, I won't even allude to the fighters. They're not worth a mention because they're not fighters. But I will say this though: the people who spent their money on this garbage, it's called short money. It's short money. It's like I don't know how to describe it. It's like somebody who doesn't think long term. It's somebody like AJ, who you know a great story of a guy you were with, Danny LeBron, and you guys are in Vegas, and some dipshit wins like 20 grand, right? Guy comes with no money, he wins 20 grand, and before the night's over,
spend every dime,
$500 because they just don't have the control. The people that spent money on this, and Floyd taking this short money, he says, I don't need the money, whatever. Well, if you don't need the money, what are you doing it for? Are you that insecure? You really have to just. But
so relevant is all it is.
Yeah, he can't stand the fact.
You know what it is, bro. Real quick, I'll let you get back to your thing. He made a comment. He's like I told the people before, I retired from boxing, but I didn't retire from entertaining. Well, I'm sorry, Floyd. If you're going to use the boxing moniker, it's still boxing.
Yeah, you know and he was never entertaining.
It was never entertaining.
How many of Floyd's fights have been entertaining? Really, the best fight I think I ever saw him in probably was the most entertaining fight I probably ever saw was probably
Angel Manfredi.
No, I would say maybe the Diego Corrales fight because that was a prime Floyd, and Floyd's skills were just phenomenal back then. And The Ricky Hatton fight was pretty exciting because remember we were there and then the crowd was just so into it that even if the fight wasn't really competitive on the scorecards, it appeared to be that way. So it was exciting. The atmosphere was really, really good. But the Berto fight was a snoozer. The Manny Pacquiao fight ended up being a stinker. A lot of the fights, the Robert Guerrero fight was a stinker. There's just a lot of fights. Zab Judah fight was pretty entertaining, but that was 10 years ago. What is that?
Yeah.
Right? 10 years ago. I mean, he just needs to. Sadly, he says this is it for me. He'll be back in some fashion. My belief is that him, Leonard Ellaby, and all the people involved with PBC and Showtime are going to get behind these Paul guys, and they're going to start promoting them, and they're going to start making money every time these guys fight. They're going to do this. That's what this was all about. It's like, okay, I'm gonna take this kid under my wing, even though neither one of them have any freaking skill or whatever. You think Floyd would go find some inner city kid, right? Some kid from out of Philadelphia, some kid in Vegas, some kid in Phoenix that's busting his ass, sharing a room with somebody so he can train. You think he would take them under his wing? No.
Well, unfortunately,
Floyd only cares about the money.
The world today, it's become a place where you see, like I said, we're Gen Xers, so it's a little bit different. We come from a place that when you spoke loud and you spoke with aggression towards somebody, that person was usually within a friend's reach or within maybe a phone call's reach, but either way, they were within reach. Today, people are doing it from hundreds of miles, thousands of miles away, talking all this thing, how tough they are, talking about people they don't even know. When you got a guy like Jake Paul talking about uttering the name Canelo Alvarez, he knows nothing about what Canelo is. But he'll find out a hard way, but he'll never get that opportunity because guys like Canelo respect the sport too much to give somebody an opportunity like that. Because this is what I mean, opportunity. This is what Floyd doesn't get. It's not the fact that Floyd fought this fight and how much money. I'm going to take the easy money. It's the fact how many fighters out there, Floyd, sacrificed their careers, sacrificed opponents in order to get that golden shot against you, and you never gave it to them. But you'll give it to some big mouth. F you, Floyd, dude. I'm done with you, dude. You ain't got nothing to do with boxing. No longer.
Yeah, well, I've been done with him for a long time.
Kick rocks, dude. Done.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. A lot of guys deserved a decent payday. You know?
So many people, man. He made Manny Pacquiao wait forever before he finally went in there. After Manny was already on the downside, coming off of knockouts from, Marquez. Let's be honest.
But Manny's getting the last laugh, though, because you know why? Because when people think about Manny Pacquiao, they say Manny Pacquiao at 42 years old is fighting the #1 welterweight in the world, a guy in his prime, a big 5 foot.
He might win.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be competitive. I think whether or not he wins, but I think he's going to be competitive because he's Manny Pacquiao and he respects the sport. The legacies are completely going in opposite directions.
I don't care what the amount of money is. It could be ridiculous money. Mayweather would never step in the ring with Errol Spence Jr. Never, because there's rumors where he got dropped and knocked out cold in sparring with Spence years ago. And this was years ago. This was years ago when Floyd was still an active fighter. Yeah. But you got to take your hat off to Manny at his age and stuff like this, to step into the ring with a dangerous guy like Errol Spence Jr., he's throwing the dice to the wind, man. We'll see what happens. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I'm excited for that fight for sure.
But,
all right, guys. So
what are we at?
We're about 10 minutes over. So 7:10. We're gonna call it.
Yeah, we're calling
Anything else you guys want to talk about? We'll be back obviously on the weekend to talk about. We'll dig into obviously this weekend's action. I'm looking forward to seeing, these fights this weekend. I mean, they're not the most exciting fights this weekend, but I'm definitely gonna tune in and see them. So
yeah. Oh no, yeah. Like I said, they're gonna. Like I said, I mean, this is gonna say nothing. These are the type of fights where a guy. This is what boxers don't understand, guys like Shakur Stevens. As long as you keep taking opponents like this, the opinion is not going to change. It's when you go out there and you beat the guy that you're not supposed to beat. It's not the guy you know you're going to beat. It's when you beat the guy you're not supposed to beat when you get put in that what they call the the lunchroom conversations with workers and stuff. They're not.
Yeah,
nobody's
around the water cooler.
This fight on Monday. Nobody's talking about this.
No.
Now if you beat Oscar Valdez. You'd be talked about on every lunch truck and you name it. I don't care where. But until then, man.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah, you're right.
Bros, man. It's good to be back, man.
Good to be back, guys.
A lot of boxing coming up and stuff. Why don't you take us out, bro?
All right, bro. For all of us here at Enter the Ring Live, thanks for tuning in. For your hosts, Mighty Mike,
AJ Rage, and Eric the Red, who's over here playing with his swords and his things turned off.
We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys this coming Sunday. Have a good weekend, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends.
Yeah. All right, brother, man. Have a good one, man. I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.